निराशा की गर्त में डूब चुका है। हर किसी को लगता है यार छोड़ो, क्या होना है, सब चोर है, सब बेकार है। पता नहीं यार ईश्वर की क्या इच्छा थी हमको इस देश में पैदा किया।
इसमें सबसे बड़ी कमी ये है कि आम आदमी के लिए ये सिस्टम बंद है।
करप्शन ना ही तो खत्म हुआ है ना ही होगा।
If you don't pay the bribe, the damage done to you or the loss sustained by you in terms of delay, humiliation, harassment, indignity is much greater than the bribe.
सरकार की व्यवस्थाओं पर से भरोसा उठ जाना, ये मैं समझता हूं बहुत ही बड़ा खतरा है।
Everybody does this. The Congress Party does this. The BJP does this. The Janata Dal does this. The Samajwadi does this. Everybody does this. And there's a time to stop this nonsense. भ्रष्टाचार के खिलाफ सबसे मजबूत हथियार आरटीआई है।
इस देश के राजनेता ना कहना सीखें और इस देश के ब्यूरोक्रेट हाँ कहना सीखें।
There are many forms of corruption. They can be addressed by innovative means. All over the world they are doing. In India we are pretending. It is not a values issue alone.
गवर्नमेंट भले फाइलों में उलझी हुई हो, लेकिन गवर्नेंस फाइलों में न उलझे और लाइफ से जुड़े।
The Lokpal bill alone is not adequate to fight corruption. We need a comprehensive anti-corruption code in this country.
Hello and welcome to Change India, an agenda for the next Prime Minister. Today in the first show of our series, we have 10 policy initiatives that will enable the next Prime Minister to combat the cancer of corruption in India. These have been culled from recommendations made by a group of experts, and you can get all the details from our website thinkindia.in.com. Joining us in the studio are three of these distinguished contributors. We have Dr. Kiran Bedi, a prominent activist in the Anna movement against corruption. Mr. Gurcharan Das, distinguished author, and his last book, India Grows at Night, dealt with this issue. Professor Dipankar Gupta, an eminent social scientist who has also written extensively on the subject. And with them is our very own Dhiraj Nayyar, who has anchored this project for Think India. We also have an audience in the studio, among whom are some people who have actively pitched into the debate on Twitter and on our website. I would urge all of you to contribute to future editions on Twitter and our website, and we would be delighted to invite you to participate in the upcoming shows. So let's get on with the first question. And the first question, when you sort of think of corruption today, is whether the Lokpal bill, which has now been passed in Parliament, how effective that will be in combating this issue. And Dr. Kiran Bedi, you've tweeted on this, you've written on it, you've been speaking extensively. You seem to feel that this is a significant step forward.
Yes. Corruption can be handled in two ways. A bottom-up approach, which reaches out as a larger meaning of corruption prevention. A top-down approach, which begins with the law and the mechanisms and the infrastructure. And Lokpal was missing, and Ombudsman was missing. What we were depending on, one director CBI with a department controlled by the Department of Personnel. And every political party was saying it's politicized. Now, the same director CBI, which the Supreme Court said it's a caged parrot, now is set free. In a way, whatever is referred by an 8-member body, which are 4 of them are senior judges and 4 eminent citizens, selected by a larger non-political body, which is headed by the Prime Minister, but has Speaker of the Lok Sabha, has a Chief Justice of India, it has an eminent citizen and leader of opposition. They select this 8-member body. This 8-member body, 4 senior judges, 4 eminent citizens, whatever complaint they refer for inquiry or investigation to the CBI or any agency around the country, mark you, any agency will report only to this 8-member body.
Including state governments, or is it only for the national?
This is national.
This is national.
This is national. Lokayukts have yet to come.
Right.
So we are beginning at the national body, which is the CBI.
Right.
And CBI, remember, is looking after millions of Government of India employees, down A, B, C, D.
Right.
So CBI also has branches all over the country. So whatever is referred to CBI, earlier, remember, a law minister calling a meeting of the director CBI and lost his job?
Right.
These things
cannot now happen once they are in the purview of the Lokpal. Mr. Das.
Yeah, I think it's a victory. No question about it. We waited 40 plus years since Santanam Committee first suggested it. My concern is that ultimately the proof of the pudding will be to convict people in public life. And our court system will now have to deliver.
Well, yes, I second what has been said so far. And it is not really a utopian task that we have now engaged ourselves with, because there are examples in other parts of the world which done very well, especially Indonesia. So I think if the Lokpal has the powers to investigate and prosecute, I would be happiest with that. I believe that the Lokpal can do what it had earlier set out to do and was shot down by practically every party in Parliament. Now I'm happy that they've accepted it in a sense. I think the Lokpal bill, as we had dreamt of it in 2011, has become a reality. There are some things to be ironed out.
Yes, I think the whole issue of whether CBI should have been fully free, as Dr. Bedi said, today when a Lokpal refers a case to them, they are fully free. So within that functional subset.
Which is why I was thinking that when the Lokpal bill was first thought of, and Dr. Bedi may correct me on this, I think the idea of prosecution investigation were with the Lokpal.
Right.
And I would like that to remain.
Right.
If the CBI is getting it, the part of the CBI should be hived out of Lokpal, just as it was with the KPK in Indonesia.
Right.
Those who are in the CBI can come on secondment to Lokpal and work with the Lokpal, and then maybe after 5 years go back.
So Dhiraj, would you sort of give us a summary here? How much is it expected that this is going to be a handicap, or with this effective freeing up, large amount has been delivered?
Yes, Raghav. I mean, in India, you can always complain that not enough is done. But I think as a first step, as Gurcharan Das said and as Kiran Bedi said, this is a victory. In India, of course, we have plenty of good laws. The problem is always in the implementation. Any law is only as good as it's implemented. So let's see how it goes. But I agree with Dipankar that I think we need the prosecution and investigation to be with the Lokpal, and needs to ultimately, even if not immediately, have its independent cadre of officials.
Okay,
but
so
prosecution is with the Lokpal. It has its own prosecution wing.
Yes.
It has its own panel of lawyers.
Yes.
It has its own budget.
So there is a stride forward. Let me quickly go to the audience and then we can move to the next point. How many of you are convinced by listening here that this is an improvement over what existed? Quickly, show your hands. Yes. Well, yeah, that's a reasonable majority. I think more 50% plus. I'd like to move to the second point, and this one has to do with Aadhaar card or the Aadhaar number, which is literally biometric identification, so that there is no leakage in the subsidy transfers and other schemes of the government. Now, you can't argue with the concept. The concept itself is good, but people have been concerned about two things. One, that we don't have the banking infrastructure through which we can transfer this. And the second thing is really that whole privacy issue of how secure is this data in the hands of the government, simply because no law has yet been passed to make it secure. So could I start with you, Dr. Bedi?
First of all, I do not know whether it's reached out to the common man as much as Lokpal bill was.
Right.
I do not know whether it has been debated enough in the language in a simple way as a common man understands. So I think that's one of the inherent defects. That's why it's gone into controversies as well.
I think it's an excellent idea. It can really transform the delivery of services. And I wouldn't worry about the fact that the banking system is not going to reach, because it has been designed so that you can use the Kirana store to execute it. And there are enough safeguards. And the the Chhattisgarh experiment where they have delivered through these Kirana stores a number of services has been positive. So
but if I could point, the big concern still is the identification of the beneficiary. that is still left to the discretion of the state government. So while you are sure through the biometric system that he is, is he the intended beneficiary or not?
No, the means testing
right.
is the Achilles heel of such programs all over the world.
Right.
So if everybody decides that they want to be below the poverty line,
right.
well, this system cannot
handle
that, and we should not expect it to. So this should not be a critique
of the system
of this, because it's a very huge improvement over what we have got.
Right. So, Professor Gupta.
No, I agree. I think the fear of invasion of privacy is overdone, really. In most societies, most democratic societies and highly acclaimed democratic societies, which are also welfare states, they know a lot about their citizens. In fact, the job of the state is to know about citizens so that they can deliver to citizens. I think that identification is a very good idea, but the Aadhaar card is kind of limiting itself in its scope. Because when a person leaves his or her home and goes somewhere else, then the Aadhaar card is practically useless, which is not right. Aadhaar card should work all over the country.
Could be an exception.
The way I've understood this is that this is address neutral. This is a unique identity that every Indian has, no matter where
let me clarify.
Is based.
Perhaps an implementation.
It has nothing to do with a bank.
Let me clarify. If you have changed residence, then you can apply to the Aadhaar
you have to inform
and then get another one. Now that is a huge waste of time. And remember, most of our people are migrant workers.
Right.
If you see the amount of migration that happens, 5 billion railway tickets are sold every year.
Right.
So look at the way we are migrating. And for these migrants to be able to get back to the Aadhaar office,
this is a systemic improvement that possibly is needed. Dhiraj, very quickly.
Raghav, I think there are implementation problems, but in theory, at least dummy beneficiaries, dead beneficiaries, all those get eliminated.
Right.
There is a problem, of course, as you said, in identifying the beneficiaries. So the premium on getting into the premium of corruption on getting into the beneficiary list may go up a little.
Right.
But on the whole, I think delivering government services through Aadhaar is a definite improvement and will definitely reduce corruption.
And implementation problems will have to be taken care of as we roll forward.
Yes, one more quick point.
Very quick.
Dhiraj is right, but there's another thing I see in Aadhaar which is very positive. That is, if you were also able to use Aadhaar to pay wages in the private sector, then that will also help in bringing the informal labor out in the open as formal labor.
I think the consensus here is excellent system, systemic improvements will be needed as you roll it out and implement it. I just want to get a very quick poll. How many people have their Aadhaar numbers here? How many people have Aadhaar numbers here? Yes, I also have mine. So, yeah, that's about 50%. So, 50% penetration even in this small sample. It's quite extraordinary.
My mother-in-law has an Aadhaar number where her gender is listed as male.
Again, you seem to have had particular implementation problems with Aadhaar. We need to take a break at this stage. I will once again remind you that our website is thinkindia.in.com. We'll be back. Stay with us. Welcome back to Change India, an agenda for the next Prime Minister, and today we are talking about how to combat corruption. Point number 3 on our agenda is something that again has been debated quite a bit, and how natural resources, whether it's mining, oil, gas, telecom, spectrum, even water, how should this be farmed out to the people who will exploit it commercially? Should it be auctioned? Should it not be auctioned? Should it be given at a price which leads to greater economic good? Lot of debate around this and a lot of corruption around this also. So let me again begin with Dr. Kiran Bedi on this subject of the consensus now seems to be auction them, but the people who want to nuance that a bit by saying if you go with revenue maximization, then what about public good? So I think there is that.
In this matter, I would go by the Gandhiji's concept of trusteeship. No national wealth or resources are owned by a political party or by a minister or a bureaucrat. Therefore, all the discretion they use, they've got to put it in use it in such a way that it is a sense of national ownership. What has happened in the past is it became almost political ownership, and even of that minister. Otherwise, you wouldn't have had problems of 2Gs and Colgates. So I would say apply the concept of trusteeship concept.
But you would therefore leave it to the discretion of a government?
I would still go by auction because that's the fairest and the most transparent manner, but with a sense of trusteeship.
Okay. Mr. Das.
Yeah, well, auctions is certainly the right way to go. But we have to realize that the auctions also, ultimately what you need to do is to remove discretion from the politicians and the bureaucrats in economic decision making. So here too, we have to be it's very important that corruptions can very easily be spoiled by people who come in and bid frivolously, bid low. There should be sufficient safeguards. That's very important. You know, there's a lot of thinking. These electronic auctioning now, there's a lot of new thinking has come in.
Like the government did for 3G. The 3G auction was a very transparent open auction.
That's right. Now that kind of thing, but the safeguards that we need to build should remove the possibilities of crony capitalism.
Professor Gupta.
Well, I think auction is a good idea, but depends on what you're auctioning off. If you are thinking in terms of coal blocks or 2G, 3G, it's fine.
Gas,
if you think of sand, for example, I don't think is that good. And also, I feel that if you
water, for instance, there's been a lot of debate around water.
On water,
yes.
You know, these are issues. So it's not as if you know the auctioning by itself is a virtue. It depends on how it is being used. And even coal blocks, for example, you'll find that a whole lot of things are auctioned off without the land being cleared, without possibility of actually making it work in short period of time, which leads to a lot of corruption. Because then some people get into the act who think they have the political leverage to make things happen, who are not necessarily good in the business.
So this is a challenge for the government, right?
It is precisely. So the point I'm trying to make is auction is good up to a point.
Right.
You will notice in recent years, last 10 years or so, liberalization notwithstanding, most of the major ventures of entrepreneurs has not been in manufacturing rather than in flogging the natural system of the country.
Where do you balance? How do you balance this fact that while on the one hand auctions are the most transparent mechanism, on the other the government also has a public policy function?
Yes, exactly. Government must have a public policy function on the basis of which you should have an auction. For example, coal blocks, there should be a public policy idea the government should articulate very clearly and then have an auction. Sand, likewise. Gas, likewise. So it's just not auction, by itself,
cannot be
which is the mantra
the one and
that would
only
work
answer to
everywhere.
Everything. Dhiraj.
Yeah, I think auctions are a good idea in principle, but then we got to be careful in auction design. I think the critical thing is auction design. You shouldn't have a situation where you choose L1 and then the person later comes to the government and says, I bid too low and I need compensation. Or the other scenario where I bid too high and now I need compensation. So auction with a clear motive. If revenue maximization is not your motive, state it up front so that you can defend it later.
And then can you also pad in some subsidies, but those should be openly known?
It should be absolutely transparent. So if you say that, look, my objective is to get 1 billion people connected on telecom and therefore I'm not going to make money out of this auction, set the reserve prices low, get the competition in, that's fine. But if you say my objective is to maximize revenue and then you don't maximize revenue and you do a non-transparent auction, that's a problem. So the public policy objective, I agree with Dipankar, has to be absolutely clear, and there's nothing wrong in saying that revenue maximization is not our objective with this particular resource. It cannot be for every resource.
Right. And we've got Mr. Maheshwari who's been tweeting into us with some of his suggestions. Very quickly, sir, your suggestion.
Actually, natural resources need a clear-cut value addition policy. Most of the natural resources, we are having different agencies from the mining to the reaching to the consumer. Actually, there are so many agencies in between. Actually, ultimately, if we are auctioning the natural resources, so it will impact the cost to consumer. So, to look into that, if right now people cannot afford power of ₹8 a unit, so after auctioning coal block and new cost to coal, so it may create another problem. So
right. So I think your point is well taken, that this is a balancing act, and this is not only the Indian government, every government in the world has to do this balancing act on how much should it try and maximize revenues from its natural resources and how much of it should be actually written off in a sense to the public good. So this has to be left to political judgment. I guess
I would just say there are now best practices around the world with regard to auctioning of natural resources.
Right.
Let's adopt those, including penalties for doing things, misrepresenting facts, huge penalties.
Moving to another subject, and this one possibly doesn't get as much play, but frankly, it could be the fountainhead of a lot of corruption in the economy, and that's everything related to land. And we have a very simple recommendation here. One very simple recommendation: equalize the circle rates with the market rates. If you do that, then in one stroke, you should be able to remove the incentive for generating black money. Is it a simple and effective thing to do?
Today, in the developed economies, you can buy land, sell a house online, and the best bidder gets it. You go to the court and say, I can pay this much, you can pay this much. We have all bought, we've all hired houses overseas sitting here. So why can't we? That means totally land records online, prices online, and then the better bidder gets it. That means everything, and the stamp duty, all the money goes back to the exchequer. This is possible. This is possible provided we all really want an honest economy.
Right.
I think that's a very good suggestion.
Just remove that artificial.
I would add to it that it would also help to reduce the black component if we brought down the stamp duty to a more realistic level. In some states, in some cities, it's exorbitant.
7 to 8 to 10%.
And that, so a 2-3% stamp duty people can live with. And that will discourage black money transactions.
So low stamp duties, equalization of circle rates and market rates. In fact, nothing called a circle rate. There is one rate that is set by a transparent system of price discovery.
I mean, I couldn't be more in agreement with this particular proposal. I may also add that the motherboard for all corruption is basically real estate. The corruption can be in any sphere, because there's a limit to how many Rolls Royces you might want. But your appetite for real estate is insatiable.
It's limitless.
Is insatiable, really. Which is why, to control real estate, you will control corruption. If you were to ask me, what is the root of corruption in this country? I will say root of corruption in this country is land.
Quickly wrap up from you, Dhiraj, on the simplicity of this, equalize circle rates with market rates. Is it so simple that it will never get done because the vested interests are so strong?
The policy suggestion is very simple, with the vested interests are equally strong. The problem, of course, is that 2G, 3G, Colgate have got a lot of play. This is a daily corruption issue, doesn't get so much play.
It's a big iceberg,
but it's a whole politician, builder, criminal nexus in this country, in every state, in every city. So that needs to be broken. But that needs a strong Prime Minister, and that's why we put it on the agenda for the Prime Minister. This is something the country needs right from the top.
So this is a simple one, but because it is simple, it is also very difficult. We'll take a break at this stage. Once again, do log into our website, thinkindia.in.com, and continue to contribute to this process. We'll be back. Welcome back to Change India, an agenda for the next Prime Minister. And this one, the next item, the next point on our agenda is also something which is very simple, but because it is so simple, perhaps it's very difficult to do. And that is bring transparency to electoral funding. Simple point. All political parties should subject themselves to an audit like any other organization does, and everything should be on the websites. Very, very simple recommendation, but perhaps one of the most difficult, because all political parties come together to thwart it. Dr. Bedi.
Absolutely. This is going by the judgment of the Chief Information Commissioner, which it gave this year, saying they come under the RTI. Well, at least the funding must come under the RTI, and I would go by congratulate the AAP party today on the set that they, I believe, I have reasons to believe they were transparent, and I think they are the examples to follow.
I think the Aam Aadmi Party is going to, we don't underestimate the model they have set for the others. And so this is, as she says, this is a great moment to actually implement this.
I'm not even sure, Professor Gupta, and I may be wrong here, I'm not even sure whether the left parties support this, who are actually otherwise, paragons of better conduct electorally.
Well, if truth be told, there are things the left party has done in different parts of India, particularly West Bengal, which are not very edifying. But the fact of the matter is that what Aam Aadmi Party shows is that transparency trumps non-transparency. And that's a good thing to suggest to everybody in the country, because we've all been used to the idea that money buys votes.
Right.
Now we have seen that money doesn't always buy votes.
Right.
Right now what the Aam Aadmi Party has done.
But if you put everything on the website, that will still not solve this problem of expenditure. We are really talking about the first stage transparency. Just tell us who is funding you and how much.
If you put everything on the website, that's a very good idea. I would add to this another thing.
Right.
And that is this: corporate should not fund political parties. There is no reason why corporates should fund political parties. Corporates should be out of this business of funding political parties.
Isn't that impractical?
Yeah. It's not impractical.
Isn't that impractical?
It is not at all.
Make it transparent.
No, no, no. It's not transparency alone. You see, corporate funding is an interest-based funding, which is not a citizen-based funding.
Dhiraj, let me bring you in here. You know, as we've seen, simple thing to do, perhaps the most difficult to achieve.
Well, Raghav, we could have put tougher things on our agenda. We could have considered state funding of elections, which is a suggestion which isn't bandied about. We could have put cap on expenditure. But I think those are totally impractical. Here, all we are asking is that anyone who gives you even a rupee, put their name up on the website, put the amount they've donated on the website.
And have your
let corporates
audited.
donate, then you'll know, at least everyone will know that they've donated for this interest, because when you make policy, people can at least see that, okay, this corporate gave the money. Let it be transparent. I think the incentive then to make policy for one particular corporate or for a few particular corporates will decrease once it's transparent. So all we are saying is just declare.
This is stage one. There is a long way to go, but let's at least cross the hurdle on stage one. Very quickly from our audience, how many of you would support the fact that political parties should put their entire funding online, should be subjected to audits? I'm tempted to say 100%. I'm tempted to say 100% support this. So therefore, as you said, the demonstration impact of this should be huge on our political parties. Let's hope the next Prime Minister can get it done. I want to move to another point, and there are 2 points, so I'll club them a bit. One is, why don't we have much more self-attestation? Today, you are able to file your income tax returns, and those are accepted by the government and a random audit is done. But for simpler things like filing of affidavits, filing of notarized forms, you are supposed to go to get them endorsed by some authority or the other. So why can't we simply have a lot more self-attestation? And linked to that is the point that we must have a time limit on judicial decisions. It's difficult, but perhaps there are ways of achieving it. Dr. Bedi.
I'll come to the second question first. I think there is tremendous overhauling needed by the judiciary in itself. It's its own house to be corrected. And I think that is not being audited at all.
So how? So we know there is a problem there. How do we get it done?
Judiciary itself has to do its own house. I think
is time limit a way forward?
If they are determined, I can tell you they can do it. But they have to show the determination and not put the ball in the court of the executive to say we're not getting more judges.
And these are simple reforms, Mr. Das.
Right. Well, you know, the biggest villain in judicial delay is the government.
Right.
Government is the largest litigant.
Right.
And not only is it the largest litigant against private sector, but with itself.
Yes.
You know, 65 to 70% of the cases are government related.
65%.
70. So you see how the government crowds out the citizen out of the judicial system. Now, the government can begin by using arbitration.
That's right.
Mediation.
Yes.
Other techniques.
So we've in fact suggested that in government cases, let's not have more than 2 appeals. Let the government not go and do 4 appeals.
No, no, the very simple system is today, if there is if the government loses a case, the person in charge of appealing is the lowest member of the bureaucracy.
Right.
It should be the highest member of the bureaucracy. It should go through proper steps.
Because he can exercise discretion.
Some
the lowest
discretion.
Member. We've, as I said, suggested that the government shouldn't have more than 2 appeals, and the government should adopt much more conciliation and out-of-court settlements rather than go through the judicial process. Workable?
Well, you see, it is workable. In fact, it is working right now in Punjab. The Punjab Governance Reforms Commission suggested these things. In fact, in Punjab now, except for 11 areas, there are no affidavits in any other area.
Except for 11?
About
no
11.
affidavits?
No affidavits. 11 are those required by law. By the way, most of us don't know that by law, you only need affidavits for a very small set of things.
Right.
And the thing that we've added on is simply because of bureaucratic aggrandizement.
Right.
But there's no need for any of this. For example, if I were to say that my name is Raghav Bahl and not Dipankar Gupta, and he signs it,
Right.
and later on I'm caught out, he will not be taken to prison, I would be. So why bring him in the picture at all?
Right.
That was the logic behind getting rid of all the affidavits. In terms of justice, transparency is very important, so that those who are under trials, their name should put on the net.
Right.
Since when have they been on trial?
Yes.
What is the maximum sentence if found guilty for this person? And if the person has already been in jail and the maximum sentence is served, this person should be let
He should be out.
let
So really,
loose.
the case history of every person
Yeah.
in jail should be on the
and
website.
then on the net again, it's very simple to do these things. You put in the time limit for each case. Just put it out.
Right.
And that's enough.
Dheeraj?
Well, Raghav, two things. I think one, the judiciary should get out of the business of the executive and get into the business of delivering justice, which is what they're supposed to do. And I think the judiciary needs to look within. It's not a matter of only getting more judges. It's a matter of taking less vacation, perhaps, as you
Yeah, I mean, vacation is one
And there's
thing.
no need why the judiciary should be off for 2 months or 2 weeks or 3
Or
weeks.
even if a crime is committed on Friday night, why do I have to wait till Monday morning
Exactly.
to get
So I
justice?
think there's a lot of room already within the system to set time limits, not legal time limits in the sense that they can never be breached, but at least as demonstration effects, as benchmarks, that at least 80 to 90% of the cases should be settled in that much time.
Okay.
There's just one quick thing. I think judges, their verdict should be limited to 20 pages.
No, that's practical.
It's very important.
It's very important.
Justice Durham said that brevity is very, very important.
I just want to do a quick audience poll here. How many of you have suffered delays in the judicial system? Your parents, your people that you know. I mean, some of you are very young, so may not have been through the judiciary too much. Yeah, so I think everyone who's above a particular age limit has suffered delays in the judiciary. We'll take a break at this stage. Do log into our website thinkindia.in.com and contribute, and stay right there. We'll be back. Welcome back to Change India, an agenda for the next Prime Minister. And in the last segment of today's show, we will look at the interface between the ordinary citizen and the state. Frankly, some of the issues we spoke about were large issues of corruption. But this is really where the citizen interfaces with the state and has to face petty corruption on a day-to-day basis. Our big suggestion is if we can bring in e-governance in a big way into this segment. We should have every rule of the government should be on a website, every procedure should be on a website, so that there is no asymmetry of information between the citizen and the state. We should have a time limit for bureaucratic decisions. If you have to have your passport, you should get it. If you're not getting it, it should be on a website on why you're not getting it, so that someone's accountable. And then use a lot of mobile technology to be able to ensure that the citizen and the state interface is made much more convenient and to a minimum. Dr. Bedi.
Raghav, it should be e-governance plus personal governance. Because remember, e-governance may still get limited to 10%, 20% of penetration of the internet. Therefore, personal governance means every senior bureaucrat and a politician must have a timetable of a town hall meeting at a declared place on a declared day, so that anybody could come and ask him questions. Only internet and e-governance will not do. But it has to be e-governance plus P-governance, which is personal governance.
That's a point very well made, because you have to then open it up to, and you said bring the officer face to face.
Yes.
No, this is an excellent idea. I like it's a doable idea. And wherever it's been done, in whatever country where it's done, whether it's in giving the driver's licenses, birth certificate, completion certificate for a building, whatever it is, it reduces the interface between a corrupt bureaucrat and a citizen. And this is really this is the corruption. This is called harassment corruption. Unlike collusive corruption, which we talked about earlier. This affects everybody. And so this really, I mean, this is the way to win votes, actually.
That's right.
In an election.
As the examples of several states have shown who have gone on to e-governance. Professor Gupta.
Unless there's a time limit given, and we know the officer who's in charge. Now here, it should not just be time limit. In Punjab Governance Reforms Commission, they put a fine of 500 rupees per day for the officer who has erred. Now, when I then take the matter to senior officer, the senior officer's job is first to deliver what I want and then institute inquiry against the junior officer.
Right.
Now, there are very strict and stringent conditions. It's not enough to just say so many days you must perform the task. There has to be a penalty for not performing. For example, Gurcharan just mentioned about architecture and house and completion certificate.
Right.
Why can't the architect give the completion certificate?
Right.
Because then you know whom to nail.
That's right.
Should the architecture be wrong,
right,
you know whom to nail. You don't have to chase the junior engineer who's become an executive engineer in the meanwhile,
right,
and gone from Delhi to Bombay or wherever. The architect should be empowered to give that certificate.
In fact, as we have in a case study, and I can personally vouch for it, in Noida itself, that is the system, and it's a very easy system.
It works very well.
It works very well.
Why can't the dealer of the motor car give you the RC?
That's right. Why do you have to go to the regional transport officer?
So we have to look at ways and means by which we can get rid of the flab.
Right.
And if you get rid of the flab, believe me, you'll also become efficient.
Amit Daga is here from, he's been tweeting to us on this. Amit, you want to come in?
Yeah, my point is like delivery system in government machinery is the window for corruption for many common people. Can we interlink, just a suggestion, like can we interlink services with the state sponsored scheme? Like I give you an example, a poor woman just, a poor woman's husband just died and she has to go to municipality for a death certificate. Is it possible that after issuing the death certificate, she will also get her widow pension?
I think it's an excellent example. It's a tragic example, but an effective example of how, if you minimize the interface between the state and the citizen and solve a lot of his problems automatically, a lot of the rent seeking and corruption will come in. Dhiraj, last word to you before we wrap up.
There's a reason we put mobile phones there.
Yes, there is.
Point number 10, because of the problem Dr. Bedi raised that only 10% have internet access. But mobile phones, I think at least 80 to 90% of Indians have. Yes. So that can be a very effective mechanism to circumvent the internet penetration problem. And with increasing smartphone penetration, cheaper smartphones and so on, I think we can definitely leverage the mobile phone much better than we have.
But there the issue would be you'll need a very strong technology backbone and authentication. So that probably links in with Aadhaar as well, possibly. Yeah. There could be an Aadhaar link between M transparency, if you know, or M governance. Yeah. So that could be in fact, a big project for the next Prime Minister to give it to somebody who can deliver. Thank you very much for being with us. It's been a very stimulating discussion. I think we've thrown up quite a few solutions which, given a little political will, can be done. Stay with us for this series. Log into our website, thinkindia.in.com. We'll be issuing many more such agenda items which you can come in and contribute. We will leave you with a rap composed for Change India by Kuntal Day and EPR.
परिवर्तन का ये ज़माना, you wanna change your country. एक प्रश्न तुम्हारे लिए, how will it be? A protest march, हाथ में हाथ, candles lit, we walk the road. पर क्या ये होता नहीं आसान? We could talk it out before. Dialogue, discourse, discuss, debate. एक idea turns to action. चलो हमारे देश को बदले. Awareness की ये मंजिल हमारे विचारधारा से होगी ये हासिल. The change is in the mind and that's where we begin. Get inspired from the best minds. होगा नहीं कठिन. करे शुरू हम काम as we walk through an oblivion. We bring forth the change. The idea becomes India.